Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. I'd like to welcome you to the final session of the Using Augmented series as part of our ETC study hall. This is session 8. So we're not really going to be doing anything new today. We're going to be covering some of the new features of 3.0 that aren't in Augmented. But as far as Augmented goes, this is going to be more of a general session of information and where to find resources as we move forward. So a few of you have already put in the Q&A, congratulations on the release. So that is our biggest news of the week. So congrats especially to Nick and Lowell and Anne and the whole development team for getting this released to the world. And thank you to everyone who's been part of the beta process. It's been invaluable to have your help and feedback throughout the last year and a half, year that we've been in open beta, somewhere in there.
It hasn't even quite been that long. It's 6 months.
For open beta? That's all?
Yeah, it was February.
Well, it's 2020 time, though, so it's like, I think 5 years.
2 million years.
So thank you to everyone who participated in that. You've definitely helped contribute to the released version of software here. So if you haven't seen, the software is up on our website. It's on our main banner page on the front page of the website, so you can download it there, and it no longer says beta when you fire it up. As we go through today, please do use the Q&A box as always. We do have a few questions that were submitted ahead of time. Thank you for those of you who did that. We're going to hit all those toward the end of the session. I don't expect us to be going anywhere near the full 2 hours today. I think this will be a little bit of a shorter session. So what we're going to go over today is new features of 3.0 that are not Augmented related. We're going to go over the updated documentation and just let you know about all the resources that are available for that. And then a question just came in from Don, so we are going to cover that. We're going to talk about the new Education Center materials that are going to be released shortly. So we'll cover all of that today. As a general reminder, this is being recorded. It will be posted on our YouTube study hall channel. Usually takes a couple days for it to get up there. And as always, we're not expecting you to follow along today. Today is going to be much less of a how-to than our previous sessions, so I don't know if it's really worth following along at any point after the fact either. The examples we're going to do in the console are more just to show you features. It's less of a specific button hits kind of thing. Okay, so and then of course, as always, we're going to look at what's coming up next. So this week, the Hog folks took a day off. So Megan and Noah have certainly earned that, but they will be back next week. But before that, tomorrow, our UK office will be presenting another episode of Light Bites. They'll be exploring what they call a relighter, which we over here on the side of the pond would call a remount. But basically, they're going to explore or talk to electricians and lighting directors who go on tour, and it's their job to recreate shows night after night. So that'll be their topic for tomorrow morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone. And then next Thursday, we will be off. We're on our every other week format here. But next Thursday, the Hog team will be here, and they're going to be starting on making a base show file. So that's what they'll be doing next week. 2 weeks from today in this time slot, Nick will be leading us in show control. We're going to be looking at remote triggers. We did a show control class a couple months ago now toward the beginning of study hall, and it was really popular and we had a lot of questions, so we're going to do another session on that topic. And then about 4 weeks from today, I'll be back leading us in how to build a successful base show file for EOS. So we've got base show file for Hog next week, EOS in a few weeks after that. All right. So I'm going to quickly just summarize what how we got here. I'm not going to read all these to you. I think we've seen these every week at this point. But here's what we did in session 1. Here's our session 2. We started putting fixtures in and learned how to edit in Augmented. Session 3, we looked at different objects and focusing. We looked at XYZ palettes, staging mode. Session 5 was where I took a little hiatus and Jason Perry led us in FBE and Focus Wand. We've looked at Vectorworks. So if you've missed any of these, again, these are all on our Study Hall YouTube channel. And then a couple weeks ago, Nick showed us some resources for remote learning. And that brings us to today. So this is what we'll be looking at today. I've already mentioned it. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So first, we're going to start with our new 3.0 features. Lowell really likes the taco graphic. He made me agree to send that to him already. I'm going to go into the software here in just a moment, but first I just wanted to mention the keycap change. So we've mentioned this before. There is a keycap replacement as part of 3.0. So the scroll lock key is being replaced with a stage key. This is the web page of where to go and do that. So basically you go to this web page, which you can link to it from our EOS page as well, but there's the URL at the top if you want to go directly there. You punch in your serial number and it will tell you which style keycap you need. There's 4 possible ones, which are all listed down there. And then you get it through our swag store, and it is a $0 order. So it's no cost, and you're able to put in your shipping information and get that shipped out to you. So it should be a pretty easy process. If you have any questions, you can email that email address down there at the bottom, and we'll get you all sorted out. And this is for customers in the U.S. If you are international, you will need to just shoot an email to get that process started. And we'll direct you to your local resources to get that to you. Okay, let me swap over to our software here. And we'll look at some of the changes in 3.0. So I've loaded up our standard, our level 4 complete show file. This is not augmented specific, just to have some content in here again. I'm not really expecting anyone to follow along with this. It's more just showing some features. For those of you who've watched the 3.0 release video with Nick, a lot of this is in there. There's a few things I've got today that are not in the release video, but some of this will be review if you've watched that. So overall, we've done a general graphics rehit. You'll see our parameter tiles are more square now. So just it's a little more sleek looking overall, and that's kind of throughout the console. Just the view, nothing's really moved around too much. I'm going to go ahead and go into a queue here. So we have something on stage. So the first thing I want to look at is our About menu. So first of all, you'll notice it does not say beta here. So that's the first exciting thing I want to point out. Do you guys have a gray box in the top right corner? Like is my WebEx? Here, I'll just close that.
You're good.
Okay. Want to make sure you guys can see everything. Okay, so if I select channel 2 here, a couple changes in About. You'll see that we have these sections over here on the left. They were formerly over on the right. Looking at channel 2. So we have a lot of the same information we've always had here, but there is a couple of new things. So I now have a background section. So for example, if I take channel 2 and put it at 50 or at full, so in live it's now at full manually, which I can see under its current value. User 1 is controlling it manually, it's at full. But if I look at my background value, it's telling me the source is Q1 and its value is 50. So it's telling me where it's going to go if I sneak it. So that's handy information to have. So I'm going to go ahead and sneak that. And then it also tells me another new section is the moves column here. So it's going to tell me the next move in my queue list that this channel is going to do. So I can see in Q3 part 1, it's going to move to 30. So I can kind of see forward in time a little bit, and then I can also, again, see what its background value is if I've overridden that with something else, whether it's manual data, submaster, or another queue list or something like that. Okay, we also have additional information for presets. So if I select preset 1, in the usage section here, We have channels that use, channels that don't use it, cues that move using this preset, and effects and subs. So just a little more granularity of information on presets and palettes as well. Okay, I'm going to jump over into Patch. And again, we've put these section buttons over here on the left. So Patch, Attributes, and Database were formerly soft keys. Those are no longer soft keys. They're just over here now. And I'll point out that the RDM functions are under Device List, which they were before, but now it's a Device List button on the left, and then our RDM soft key populates where it used to be. Our setup screen is very similar. So I'm going to go into Setup, Display is Setup. So our sections are on the left, that they just match graphically the other style. So they're still on the left where they've always been. We now have these toggle buttons. So here's AutoMark, for example. Here, let's find one that's not going to mess up our show. So I can turn SMPTE on and off with a toggle here, and I still get the enabled, disabled. It also grays out when it's disabled. Just a little more visual here. And then under our show control section specifically, we also have some headers of our different show control types. So it's just organized a little bit more easily to understand here. So if you're looking for something in setup and you can't find it, hopefully this will help you get there a little more quickly. Okay, so going back into live here, one of the big changes is our offset tool. So I'm going to go ahead and select 1 through 100, just so I have a whole range of channels here, and hit offset. So the first thing you'll see is this graphic that we've got at the top here. So I've got 1 through 100 in numerical order. It's not necessarily going to show 100. You know, if I select 300 things, it's not going to show 300 different bars. It's more just representative of the selection. But what this lets us do is when I do things like if I click reverse, I can quickly see that that is reversed. If I click mirror in, I can visually see that as well. So I still get my channel preview here in the white numbers like I've always gotten, but I now have the graphic on top as well with this animation showing me how the order is going to work. So there's mirror out, here's random. I also have the ability to have multiple mirrors. So I'm going to say mirror in, and now I can type in 4, for example, and it's going to split that into four separate sections that are mirrored in. Again, that's also reflected in my channel display here. I can also use interleave with this, so that will mirror in more evenly, which might be what you're looking for. I'm going to back that off. So if I say channels per group 6, so that's going to show I've got 6 channels in each group here. If I use interleave, we're going to get this view. I think this will also help folks to understand how interleave works a little bit better. I know that sometimes it's been a little hard to grasp. So visually, maybe this, hopefully this will help make that a little clearer. So now I'm going to show, whoops, I'm going to show number of groups 4. So I'm going to make 4 groups here. Now I can add interleave. Again, visually, you can see how that works. Let's get rid of my interleave. Another new button is invert. So this is going to work with our jump offset tool. So we're going to start with jump. So I'm going to say jump 6. Sorry, I'm going to say jump 2. And you can see that it is making four groups, but I'm skipping 2 channels. So over here on the channel numbering, you can see I'm skipping 24 and 25, I'm skipping 49 and 50. And visually, it's indicated with these bars with the lines through it. From here, I can click invert, and it's going to only select those channels that were previously jumped. So that's a new addition here. And then the last new tool here in Offset is order from group. So I'm going to clear all of this and start over with 301 through 312, which is my cyclites in this show file. And so these are multi-cell cyclites. So I'm going to say I want to order from group 41. So group 41 was built with all of the cells for 2 sets of lights. So it's a top row and a bottom row, and they all mirror in pairs, top and bottom. But what I've done here is I've only grabbed the top of the cyc, but I'm still keeping that mirror in. So what order from group lets you do is build fewer groups. So I can build one master group that does everything I want it to do, and then I can grab little subsections of that group with specific channels without having to necessarily record them all the time. If you only need to use it once, you could use the order from group. You can also use it, of course, to build your other groups. From here, I could record a new group. So I can build the master group first and then build out my smaller ones if I want to. All right, so I'll switch over to my PSD here. So another tool, I'm going to turn off my fader ribbon just so we can see a little more. Another offset tool is I can now offset queues. So I can say queue 1 through, select my last queue, and I'll say offset 2. And then I can do things like I can change the time, or I'm going to go ahead and add a label that says this is every other queue. And because I've selected every other queue, I now have that label everywhere. So I can offset by any number of queues that I want. So that is handy for changing times or labels in bulk. All right, next let's look at our color picker. So we've added a couple of just visual indicators here for our CIE spaces. So these are Rec 709 here, which is a toggle, and Rec 2020. So these are references for cameras. So 709 is the HD standard, and 2020 is the UHD standard. So this is just a reference. So if I turn on 709 here, and I turn on channels 31 through 50, which are D60s, I believe, I can still pick outside of that triangle. So this bounding box is, of course, the limits of the fixture, and then this is my Rec 709. So it's not preventing me from selecting something outside of that, but it's an indicator that may not render correctly on my camera. And your mileage may vary. If we're really close to the line, it might be okay. If we're right inside the line, it might not be okay. But it's a general reference. It's going to depend on your fixture, of course. A general reference of kind of where to be within that standard. I can also have them both on at the same time if I need to. All right. Here's a little small one that has been a request for a long time. So I can now reorder tabs within a frame. So if I want my color picker to be first, I can just drag that over there. Maybe I want my live table to be right there. Just something we can reorder. So I'm just clicking and dragging. I'm on Nomad here today. This works on consoles the exact same way. And then our file save, we covered this in one of the previous sessions, but I wanted to mention it here again today. When I go to save a file, I have 3 options here. So our default is to save it with the augmented model. This will, of course, be the largest file type, as it's going to have all that 3D information in there. I can save only the show file data. And again, we've talked about this before, but as a reminder, that will include any position and orientation data, as that information is part of patch and not part of the model. But any scenic objects you've placed in your model, any camera information, any objects are going to be part of the model only. So that stuff will not be saved in the ESF2 file. And ESF2 is a format we introduced in 2.9, which is not backwards compatible with older versions of software, but it is a smaller file format. If you do need to open a show file on an older version of software, you can still save it in the standard .esf format, which is a little bit larger than an ESF2, but is backwards compatible.
I'll also say from a working standpoint, if you're not using Augmented, there's no harm in saving an ESF3D, right? Like if you know, that's going to be basically the same file size as an ESF2. The other thing that I think will be interesting to see how people take this up as they get back to work. But you know, when you are saving an ESF3D, if you do have stuff in your augmented model, that's a larger show file. And don't forget, when you do a quick save, that every time you do that, that's going to put a new copy of the file on every hard drive that's in your network, including RPIs and things like that. So, so if the model isn't changing, it may be that, you know, at breaks, at lunch break, at the end of the day, you're saving a full ESF3D show file, but as you're changing cues and just doing sort of, you know, inter-tech things, if the model isn't changing, you're very welcome to just save ESF2 show files because that will capture the show data that's changing and not necessarily include the whole model package. But be very cognizant that at the end of the day, or whenever you expect to walk away, to save the full ESF3D file. You know, what you don't want is to get a whole bunch of work done, change your model, or walk off site and not have your model information with you. So just be very cautious about that.
And then a quick save will save in the same format as the previous save. Is that correct?
Yeah, with the exception of the
to the hard drive.
Correct. So if we right now were to choose ESF2, the quick saves from now on would save in ESF2 format until we change back to ESF3D. The exception to that is saving it in legacy mode. That's always a one-off, right? So when you do a quick save after saving in legacy mode, it's going to go back to saving in whatever mode you had most recently saved in between ESF3D and ESF2. So it's a little confusing. I don't anticipate that people are going to need to save in legacy mode very often. And so that's really for I need to take a show file to a desk that can't be upgraded for whatever reason. And remember that anything that's on 2.9 can read an ESF2. So this is really for going beyond, you know, lower than 2.9 software back to 2.8 or earlier.
Great, thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm going to say cancel for now. Another feature, which I can't show you because I'm on Nomad, is the ability to switch between 3.0 and 2.9 on a console. So we are now able to have both versions of software installed simultaneously. And then on a console, this is done in the shell. It's on the General tab down toward the bottom. And if you're in 3.0 environment, it will have a button that says switch to 2.9. If you're in 2.9, the button will say switch to 3.0. And it does require a reboot. And I believe you can have different show files that are retained in each. So if you're working on one show in 2.9, switch to 3.0, it'll bring back whatever 3.0 show you were working on previously.
Yeah, both spaces have their own persistent storage.
On Nomad, it's as simple as having you just have both programs installed on your computer at the same time, and then like I have a shortcut on my desktop, one's for 2.9 and one's for 3.0. So you would just launch one of them at a time. again, but without the need to reinstall or uninstall the other one first. So that's pretty handy. Let's take a look at the fixture editor and patch here. So I want to point out here the asterisks on our fixture types on the left here. So that means that there is a newer profile for the fixture, those newer fixture type in the library than there is in the show file. So basically, since I created this show file and patched it, the fixture library has been updated. So we are able to update these. I'm going to update my dimmer profile here. And when I click the update profile button down at the bottom here, it's going to tell me what the changes are here. And I can say, okay, I'm not sure what miscellaneous and minimal means, but sure, we'll say okay there. So my asterisk is gone. Be aware that this can affect the playback of your show. So I'm going to go down to this SoloFrame 750 and say update to show you. So this one has a lot of shutter ranges that have changed in the profile. So this is an example of something that really could change how your show plays back. So if you are in a long-running show, there's probably no need to do this. If it's working fine, you're not reprogramming, you're just hitting, going through your cue list every night. I would stay away from doing this because it could adversely affect your playback. However, if you're starting out a tech process and maybe you're starting from an old patch or something, it's not a bad idea to come in here and check this, and you can go ahead and update them as if you haven't already created all your content yet. We've also added an update all button. So again, be careful. So I don't have to go through and click each one individually. I can say update all, and you get a red warning that says, be careful, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm going to say yes, and get rid of all those. Also note, this is not undoable. So if you're not sure, save your show file first, do it, maybe check some things, and if it's okay, you can move on.
Where this comes up kind of regularly from a useful standpoint, if you're using a base show file, right? Because we save the profile into the show file itself. If you're on a show that's running, this is not something you're probably doing. Again, as Rob said, if it's working, then updating it can actually cause more harm than good. I've had a couple of long-running studios where someone with serious fingers has come in and updated this. And it's wrecked the show, right? And you have to just go back to a previous version of the show file. There's no other way to deal with it. Where I see that it is useful is if you give yourself a little base show file, and as you're getting ready to bring that information into the next show that you're going to be doing, updating those profiles with the fixes and the changes can benefit you long term. So that's kind of where I see that this is useful. And as Rob said, it can be dangerous if you're not careful. So.
And that's why we don't do it automatically. That's why we make you come in and do it yourself. Because it is our goal to not screw up any existing show files with a software update. Okay, so next feature to look at is a small one but a good one. So I'm going to select a moving light that has shutters here and go into my shutter control here. So previously, how the software worked, I'm going to kick that shutter in and rack it and then push it in a bit. So previously it made me stop the shutter here at this point because of the angle. So it's respecting the angle here, and it won't override that, because that's as far as the shutter can go in while maintaining that angle. We now have an exceed limits button. So if I check that or touch it on touchscreen, depending on my situation, I can now continue to push this shutter further, although you can see here it's obviously changing the angle to allow that to happen. So we now give you the choice to do that or not. Okay. All right, let's take a look at Magic Sheets. There's a bunch of new cool stuff in Magic Sheets. So this is the Magic Sheet that we build in our level, I think at the end of level 3, our Magic Sheet looks like this in our standard trainings. So I'm just going to start with this today. I'm going to open up my editor and get Nick's face out of my way here. Open my editor. Maybe, there we go. So the first feature I'm going to show is the replace object button, which is really handy, or change type, excuse me. So if I select this object, so this is a channel, it's channel 104. I've got some fields here, my target ID and intensity. I've customized the font and the font size. So I like everything about this, except maybe I want to change the actual object itself, like what it looks like. So there's now a button that says change type here, and it's going to pop up a menu that looks exactly like my selector in the main part, and I can change this to something else. Maybe I want it to be an arrow. And it's going to just swap the object, everything else remains the same. And you may notice this arrow is pointing to the right. So the reason it's pointing to the left here is because this fixture was flipped 180 degrees. So it has also respected the position of the object as well. So pretty handy button there to swap around. The next one is I have the ability now to make objects non-interactive. So for this example, I've got a couple of console buttons here. I have full, rem dim, and enter. And normally, and it may be hard to see since I'm just clicking with the mouse, but so if I select a channel and I click full, I get full on the command line. Okay, great. Let's clear that out. If I make this non-interactive, I'm going to select it, and it's down here to my object properties. So this interactive checkbox will always default to being on, to being checked, but I can uncheck it. And now if I come out here and I say channel 1, I can no longer click full. It doesn't do anything. So this is useful for objects that I only want to give me feedback, and I don't want someone to accidentally touch them and have them post them on command line or run a macro or call a color palette or anything else. So I will go ahead and check that box back again. I also have the option to do that for an entire Magic Sheet all at once. So that option is found under my settings here, and it's right up here at the top. Again, this defaults to on, but I can uncheck it, and now nothing on my Magic Sheet will do anything. So again, if you have Magic Sheets that are built just for feedback to give you information about what's happening, and you don't want someone to accidentally bump the touchscreen, that's an easy way to kind of lock that out. The next thing we've added some new object types. So the first one is the ability to make objects be soft keys. So I'm going to drop this button in here, and I'm going to assign its target as soft key down here toward the bottom. And you can see my choices. I get a new drop down below that. I can make it be soft key 1 through 6 or more soft keys. So I'm going to leave it as soft key 1. And then I'm going to create an array with 7 columns and 1 row. And that will auto-populate with all of my soft keys here. So now if I go to live, you can see that that's going to match my soft keys. So if I put a channel on the command line, they're going to change to map my soft keys. You know, if I put record, so basically you can add interactive soft keys onto any Magic Sheet, which is pretty cool. And of course, I can reassign these to be, I can make them all be soft key 1 if I wanted to do that for whatever reason. The other thing that we've changed, and this one's really handy, is fields are now context sensitive. So if I select a channel, so this object is a channel, and then I come down to my fields here. I've got a field tree that's blank. It's showing me fields that I can use for this object. So for channels, I have quite a few options that I can use as fields. However, if I select a color palette, so here is a color palette object, I have many fewer fields available here. So that just makes it easier to tell what's going to provide you with useful information. I also have a new field here for color palettes specifically, which is called Color Swatch. So right now you can see my color palette buttons are mapped to their color. So I'm going to select a few of these, and I'm going to unlink their link to target color. So now there's the default color of gray there. So what I can do with these three is I'm going to add a field of color swatch. And now when I close my editor, I get a swatch. So this is the same swatch that will be on your direct select, just on a magic sheet. And I can position that field, right now it's in the center of the object, but I can position that just like any field on a magic sheet object, anywhere around that object that I want to. So just another option there for color palettes as far as how they display their information. I can also now display the color of macros and snapshots. So we've always been able to link the target color for channels and color palettes, but I can now do that for macros and snapshots. So if we look at my macro list real fast, I see that macros 3, 4, 5 are white, green, red. I'm going to use those three as an example. So I'm going to come back to my magic sheet. And I'm going to drop in, we'll just come up here. I'm going to make that be macro 3, and then I'm going to copy and paste it. And we'll make that one be 4, and this will be 5. And then what I can do is, I've got all three selected, so I can say for its color, I want to link to target color. And now we're going to see that 3 is white, 4 is green, and 5 is red. So if I have any toggle macros that change the color of that macro, which a lot of folks do for their direct select indicators, that will now also work on your magic sheets as well. And then again, this also works for snapshots in exactly the same way. And then another little handy feature is our renumbering tool. So I'm going to renumber these channel objects here. I'm just going to renumber them as 1 through 5. So we'll say channel, start at 1. I'm going to click my little page, my quick target here. And what we've added is my cursor now displays the label of the target I'm going to click next. So it says channel 1, so I can click that and it's going to turn to 1. And now my cursor says channel 2. Make that 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's just an easy way. Previously, it was kind of like the cursor would blink, and that was how you knew that it took. So it's just a little more visual indicator to help you know what you're labeling with that tool. And I'm going to click done. And then the last thing in here is we do have a couple more new objects. So I have an analog I/O gateway here. So if you happen to have an etc response I/O gateway, I can add that in, and it's going to give you real-time status of that gateway. So this is the target you'll see is response I/O relay. And I can set the target to match that relay number, which is all set up in our show control section of setup. And then for fields, I can get the value, which is that on/off. So right now it's not configured, so I don't see anything, but it would, if I had a real one there, it would show me it's either on or off. And then our other new object is a timecode object. So I can now see real-time status of my incoming time code here, and I can have more than one, and these are, this number at the beginning is the list. So I can point these at whichever show control event list that I want to. So show control, this is set to target 1, I could change that to 21, and now it's looking at list 21. And those will update in real time. And then the last thing I'll mention is we've expanded our ability for grid creation. So we can now do grids of objects up to 1,000 by 1,000 objects, large. Okay, I'm going to move on to pixel maps. So I don't have any in this show file. So this is just a small little tweak, but I think it's a handy one. So I'm going to create a new one. So previously, when we patched pixel maps, we had to assign a server channel here. So I'm going to say 501, and then we had to also go into patch and patch it there. But now that work is done for us. So I'm going to go ahead and put some layers in here as well and show you how that works. We'll say there's my layer channels, and then here's my effects channels. And now when I go into patch, if I look at 501, those are already pre-patched in there for me. So it's just one less step. Not a huge thing, but just a little time saver there for you. And then the last thing I will mention here, again, I can't show you. It is in the 3.0 video with Nick, is if you are on a console that has built-in faders, so a TI, Geo, or a Geo at 5. Actually, Geo at 5 has always had this. We've added the ability to expand our fader ribbon and show you the kind of the fader config tile information on your console. So this is the information that has been on our Geo at 5 hardware since it came out. It's that small screen above the faders. It's also on our external motorized fader wings. So we've brought that visual feedback onto all of our consoles with built-in faders, built-in motorized faders. Okay, so that is all for new features. Before I switch back, are there any questions while I'm still here in the software?
We had a couple of questions that are that I don't. We have some questions that came in ahead of the session, which are all Augmented related. So maybe we save those just a bit. When we've got two that are in the queue that are related to software updates and education updates. So
why don't we keep going then, and we'll see if we answer those questions as we go, and then I can come back into the software at the end.
Great.
Great.
Great. So we've got those questions queued up. If you haven't had your question answered, all will be dealt with in time. So off you go, Rob.
Great. All right. So let's come back to sharing my PowerPoint here. Pardon me while I get my tools back. Here we go. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to talk about today is our documentation. So not the most exciting topic, but very important. Alex has worked really hard on getting these things out and ready for you in time with the software release. So I just want to let you know about what documents are out there real quick, so that you know there's resources and kind of how they can help you as you if you come up with questions along the way. So of course we have new manuals, very exciting. I just wanted to point out, so we have three brand new manuals, or very updated manuals at least. So the EOS manual is 659 pages. The Ion, we have an Ion Classic manual for those of you on that hardware, a little shorter, 641 pages. We have an Element Classic or Element 1 manual, again slightly shorter each time. So the total pages that Alex has provided us just in manuals is almost, he's just shy of 2,000 pages. So thank you, Alex, for all your work on this. I do not recommend reading through these cover to cover. If you want to or you have, congratulations. But so the manuals are a great resource if you want to learn everything there is to learn about a specific subject. If you want to know everything there is to know about submasters, find the submaster section and read, all 10 pages or whatever it is. But we of course have other resources for a little more organic learning than the manuals might provide. So some new documents that we have. So there is an augmented quick start guide. This was in the beta forum. It's been in the beta forum for a while, but now it is finalized. It's an official released document. I'll show you where to find these in just a second. We do have a Vectorworks plugin install guide. So if you were on the Vectorworks session, I kind of said, oh, it works like this. It's magic. You can see how the magic works and how to install it. That does cover Vectorworks 2019 and 2020. They're a little bit different depending on which one you have. So it does cover both versions there. And then we have IRFR setup guide, which that's not a new document, but it's been updated to help with Focus Wand. So these are all found. This is a screen grab from our webpage this is from the TI page specifically, but each console page has a documentation tab, and that's where most of these documents can be found if you are looking for them. Okay, so, all right, so there's a couple other documents that you'll see on there too. So our Hotkeys documents have been updated. Those are the ones that look like this. So this is especially helpful for Nomad users or anyone who's using a keyboard to control their console. So that all the augmented features have been added to these and any other updates that have happened with 3.0. And then, of course, we have our release notes, which come out with every software version. So I'm a big fan. I didn't do a screen grab, but I always scroll down to the bottom of the release notes. So the SCRs, which is like the tasks for the software, are sorted by number. So the smallest number is the oldest request. So I always like to go and see what's the thing that's been hanging out the longest that we took care of. So just a little Easter egg for you there if you want to scroll through those and check it out. We always do a summary at the top, which is probably the most easy to digest information of new features, things we fixed. There's also a list of known issues. Sometimes we have workarounds listed on there. So if you're having a specific issue, that can be a good place to look and see if there's a solution for that.
This will also be the definitive place for compatibility, so what works with what, if you're looking for any information on that.
Great. And then I want to talk about, we had a question come in about this, about training materials that are coming. So these are coming soon. They are not out just quite yet. We're hoping to have these out in about a month, hopefully end of the month or beginning of next month. These will be released. We're still putting some finishing touches on everything. But what is coming is a new video series with Nick and myself showing how to do each of all of the functions of Augmented. It's an Augmented specific series. It's very much in the format that you're all used to with the online videos, kind of short little snippets per subject. There will be a workbook that goes along with it that you can follow along with and show files. So here is just a little preview. This is from our internal video editing software, but it's basically 38 videos coming. So all of these topics have been covered in the Using Augmented series that we're wrapping up here today. But again, it's a little more, it's easy to find a specific topic, watch a 5-minute video and move on, as opposed to our study halls, which are a little bit more longer format here. So these are the additional files that we'll be releasing with this. So we'll have the show file to follow along with, of course. We'll have an updated capture file. It's not, with Augmented, first of all, it's not necessary because you can do all of it just within the EOS software and Augmented, but there is optionally you can network in this capture file. This is the same Mind the Gap scenery and rig that we've had before. We've just done some optimization of it for Augmented. So it's been updated a little bit. If you're still using the old one, it should work just fine. And then we'll have some Vectorworks files so that you can practice exporting if you want to do that, or if you want to come in and redesign our set, you can do that as well. And then a couple weeks ago, Nick went very in-depth into these. I just wanted to mention it again here. So we do have the Augmented Light Lab, which is a show file that Lowell put together. It's a pretty plug-and-play, really easy way to get started with Augmented, so that's available. And then we have 3 pre-built venues. I've been using them in this series throughout as well. So those are all, those are available now. You don't have to wait for those. But the Education Center resources will be along in a few weeks.
Hey, one quick note on the Augmented venues, the sample files. When we restructured the website, those just got orphaned a little bit, so they're hanging in the ether right now. So if you go to search for them, you will not find them on the main site. They are posted in the Augmented forums, but we'll be getting that fixed as soon as we can. So those should be up within the next day or so. But if you go looking for them today, they are slightly hidden because it's a bad thing, but it'll be better, I promise.
They're hidden in the tubes of the internet.
And I'll add one more thing too that Robert asked. We are also updating levels 1 through 4 with things that are kind of critical to 3.0. So Rob has been working with Ellen White, who's also in our Education Center. So they've been getting those courses up to date. Not a lot has actually changed for those, but we're going through and making sure that there's some clarifications. So yeah, as Rob said, this is a really big re-hit and new materials that we're pulling across the finish line. So as soon as we get all those pieces together, we'll get them out for you. And Ellen also mentioned that those are going to be the workbooks. We're not going to update videos just yet for 3.0 for those sections. But I feel like, and Rob, you can correct me, most of the stuff has been fairly minor for those updates.
Yeah, and I can say off the top of my head, in level 1, the only change is the scroll lock key. Like, now you have to hold shift and press stage instead of hitting scroll lock. Or press shift and scroll lock if you haven't physically swapped your button yet. So, but that was literally the only change in all of level 1. So good for us. We haven't gone through all of the levels yet, so we might run into some bigger stumbling blocks later. But we're hoping to get all of this sussed out in the next few weeks. Okay, so as this is the final using Augmented session, this is your last opportunity ever to ask questions about Augmented. Not really, but for this series, it is. So I found this graphic and liked it. Lowell was particularly fond of the press release reference here. So with that, why don't we, however you want to do it, Nick, if you want to start with the questions that came in ahead of time, or we can see what's come in today. However you want to.
Yeah, a couple of things that have come in. Just because we're on it, David asks if the 3.0 workbooks are going to be console specific, like the manuals. So is there going to be a set for the Element Classic? I think we do have Element specific books, and I don't know if Ellen has anything about that, but go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, we do have Element specific books for levels 1 and 2 only, and then everything else is in the EOS family, levels 1 through 4. And there are notes in the 1 through 4 books about Ion Classic and EOS Classic. So hopefully we've covered all of our bases. It was we were trying to prevent Ellen from having to maintain volumes and volumes of separate things by condensing them all into one. So And then our trainers are also really good about in training saying, because our trainings are done on IMXE, so once our trainers are allowed to go do them again, they're really good about pointing out if you have an Ion Classic, it's this, those sort of differences. So we strive our best to do that in the books and in our in-person trainings.
Excellent, thank you. And we've got one more that I'll actually take before we get into some of the other augmented questions that came in. Jeffrey asked if about 2.9 software updates and 3.0 software updates. So 2.9 we consider feature complete. As a lot of you know, there are many hardware options that will not be able to install 3.0. So 2.9 will have the features that it has for those devices. But we do have the ability that if something super critical comes up that we need to address, we can create a new build for that. And we will be continuing to produce libraries for 2.9. So those folks that are using something like an EOS Classic or other XP-based hardware that can't be upgraded, we'll continue to put in fixtures and things like that, but no new features will be added. So yeah, if you're on something like a Nomad or a console, you may see a 2.9.2 or a 2.9.3 in the coming years. We'll do those as needed. And then 3.0 will continue to grow, add new features, and move forward with all of our hardware. So good question, Jeffrey. So we had a bunch of questions that came in, both in the Q&A and on the forum ahead of time, which had to do basically with the heading of augmented fixture models and profiles. So if we kind of want to talk about, maybe Rob and Lowell both want to jump in on this, you know, kind of the what fixtures are included with 3.0 now in general. How do you submit a request if there's a fixture that's not in that you want? How can you deal with that temporarily if there's a fixture that you want that doesn't have an augmented model? And what are sort of like long-term plans for fixtures and models and augmented? And go.
So I was just going to show. I was going to show quickly, and again, we've looked at this before in this series, but where how you can tell in patch if the physical fixture data is there or not. So I saw a comment saying like just now that said, well, I know all the ETC and high-end fixtures are in there, and actually they're not. Like, so SolarFrame 1500 is not here, and you can tell that by the 3D symbol. So if a fixture has a 3D, it will in the model look accurate, whereas if it doesn't, like in the case of this one, we're going to populate a generic fixture that's hopefully close. I know we've had some that are nowhere near close. You know, we'll work to fix those as we go along. But that is how you can tell if you have physical fixture data in Augmented. Lowell, can you talk about how to request new ones or what that process is of moving forward?
So it's actually the same process as it's always been. So anything you would do to request a fixture profile for a new fixture, you can use that same practices. So forum is the most common, but also, you know, talking about our tech service group or any of the standard options. And that is all now set up on our side so that we will handle that for augmented requests as well. So just reach out in any of the ways you always have, and we'll be there. So just a little bit of a note about what is currently there. You know, that comment about, well, all of the high-end and ETC stuff should be there. We purposely did not put all of that. We went out and we talked with a whole bunch of programmers, and we put together a list of about 70 of the most common fixtures. And we focused on those regardless of whether they were an ETC or a high-end fixture. We wanted to target what you guys are actually using. While we would love for you to use ETC and high-end fixtures, we know that there are a few others out there you might want to use every once in a while. So we wanted to make sure that was covered. Obviously, that was just a starting point. you look through the library, there are just thousands and thousands of fixtures. We clearly couldn't do information for all of them, but this will be an ongoing thing. Every library release will continue to add more and more as we grow this. And just a real big reminder here that just because it doesn't have a 3D logo next to it doesn't mean it won't work. It's just the accuracy. So this is just like when we were doing color and we would have on the color picker the fixtures with the little retaining ring around the side or without. It's all the exact same concept. It's, you know, you will always be able to control it. It's just going to be how accurate it is.
And then this will also, when we add new fixtures into the library, that will be included in the fixture update that we were looking at earlier. So there was at one session previously, the color source par, which is an ETC fixture, in the model just kind of looked a little blocky and generic, and I did a fixture update, and then it switched and it looked much more realistic. So that data is part of the library and part of the updates as well, and that should be in those notes, I believe. I forget the wording of it, but it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Don had a question about, does the 3D symbol and patch mean the pan and tilt ranges are accurate? To the best of our knowledge. You know, one of the things that we've discovered is that there are a number of different languages about how people talk about their fixtures. We've extrapolated the best we can, but it's not quite possible for us to sit down with every single fixture out there, as much as we wouldn't mind doing it. So if you do see something, even if it's a 3D one that has an issue, you know, pan is inverted, or you know, it doesn't quite have the same range, or, you know, one of the ones that threw us quite a bit early on is there are multiple pan options in a fixture. So, you know, if you see anything that you think is wrong, let us know. We'll do our best to correct it.
And on that, I'll just point out here too. So here's an example of one without the 3D symbol. So we still have a pan range here. You know, we're still going to have the gobos, you know, to the best of our knowledge, we're still going to have the colors in there. The 3D model is just the physical, what it looks like in the physical model. It's not the attributes of the fixture.
But, you know, the physical data, so there was another question here about what information do we want? We'll take as much as you got. So if you have the full manual, absolutely, that'd be fantastic. If you've got a data sheet or anything that talks about size of the fixture, we'll take that. You know, we do need to know some physicality of the fixture. So, you know, the length between the pivot point of the yoke and the hanging point of the fixture is one of the crucial ones. So we know where those angle points come from. Really, anything we can get. And we have been talking with a bunch of other fixture manufacturers and trying to figure out ways to standardize all of this. You know, there are a number of different formats going around out there that do some of it. There have yet to be one that does like all of the information that we need for that. Most of it is really considering control, not necessarily physicality.
Now, while you're on that, Lowell, Jeffrey asked about if they're sending in a request for a fixture. You know, usually they send in a DMX chart, right, or a manual. Is there any information that they can include that helps making a 3D fixture easier, or is that something that we need to talk to that fixture manufacturer?
You know, it all depends on how much information an individual manufacturer puts out. So, you know, a data sheet or something that shows width, height, length type stuff is helpful. So, you know, really, whatever you have, we'll take and we'll ask for more if we need.
Excellent.
A DWG file, if you've got one, sure, why not? We'll take it.
Excellent. And then, I don't know who wants to grab this, but how often will fixture updates be pushed out, and will it be more consistent with a bunch of new model updates coming?
Yeah, Nick, that's all yours.
Great. Yeah, we do periodic. So every time we release a new software release, all of the library changes that have happened since the previous software release are included. But we do periodic updates. I think Ray, who is our library editor, pushes out a new library every 2 weeks. And so that gets posted to the website. And so if you're, there's also a document that goes with that shows all of the stuff that's included That's a good place to check. Oftentimes when you call support, they will suggest that you, if the fixture's been addressed, they will put it, they will have you download and install that library. But know that every time, like we released 3.0 on Monday, it has all the library updates that were kind of backlogged built right into it. So you don't have to do library installs if you've recently done a software install.
I was helping somebody with a 291 library update this week, and I looked and I saw that there were 3 fixture library updates in August. So they are updated frequently.
Very good. One of the ones that came in from our forums, do we kind of want to discuss field angle versus beam angle in Augmented and reality, I guess?
Yeah, so, we started with beam angle, and the main reason for that is it was just what went into the rendering engine the best. We're going to keep an eye on what other options we can offer there and see if we can do some things with field. It seems like everybody I talk to prefers one or the other, and we just kind of had to pick one. So we went with beam, and we'll be evaluating that as we go.
We came across this in our Vectorworks episode session. That's the word I'm looking for. Where we were pulling over the actual beam angle as opposed to the field angle from Vectorworks. So that was, if you remember back from that episode, we saw that as well.
All those many years ago.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think that also will depend, on the type of fixture you have. So I believe ellipsoidals, the field angle and the beam angle are pretty close to one another. Or like the beam angle that we call the fixture by is close to the field angle, because field angle and beam angle are all about fall off. Whereas something like a Fresnel, I think those are going to be very different. So I think it will also depend on the physicality of the fixture, and that's why we give you the ability to make adjustments. Is if you find something and need to put it in a different way, we can do that.
Yeah, and I will also just reiterate that we were concentrating on this as a programming tool, not a full-on visualizer. So that level of accuracy was, we think is I don't want to say close enough, but it was a good starting point.
Yeah, and Anne's exactly right. So Anne says in the Q&A, and Anne is the one who submitted the question, I believe, as well. Hi, Anne. The 26 degree is the field angle of an ellipsoidal, right? So like that's the whole beam. When we talk about true beam angle and field angle, that's the threshold at which the intensity falls off by 50% from the center. So yeah, you are correct. Basically, we're using the light coming out of the fixture and Augmented will be 26 degrees conically, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
It might not match 100% perfect, but I think it'll get you in a good enough programming position.
And that's what we will hit that again. This is a programming tool first, not a visual, but it'll get you the ideas, I think. Cool, very good. Is there a way? Do you want to talk a little bit about invert for maybe an Augmented only invert versus invert in patch versus reality, and just kind of talk through that thought process level?
That's, let's see, what's the easiest way to talk about that? Yeah, we've definitely found some oddities in fixture profiles. We don't, I guess, you've got a couple of things you could do with changing in patch to the direction of a fixture. But this is just one of those oddities where, like, someone will, or some document will say, all right, it actually goes counterclockwise versus clockwise. Some we have no idea, and we just kind of have to figure it out. But yeah, I think that's something we do have on our list to make a little bit easier in the future. So if you wanted, like we have invert pen, invert tilt inside of patch for control, but only inside of the Augmented side. So right now, those are pretty tied together.
Thank you. And on that, we're still working on fixture orientation flags, so like which way the whips and the graphics are facing and all that. I think those are things as well as if you come across issues with those, we want to know about it, right? Ideally, we want them fixed. So we'll give you tools to correct that in the moment, I think, long term, but you also, like, we want it to be right. So if you find that stuff, send it our way.
Please.
Have you thought about Lowell, the future edition of, Clifford asked about a DWG object, but I'm assuming he means like a 2D symbol for 3D devices?
So, well, actually, no, that was about, he asked that when we were talking about,
that was about
information.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. Cool. So one of the questions that came in was just sort of talking about general best practices for good accuracy in focus wand. Scott sent that in. Do you have some thoughts and ideas about how to make focus wand as accurate as possible to prevent drift and things like that?
You know, it's interesting to see how that industry has massively changed over the last, like, even year. So, you know, and I totally blame Pokemon Go and some of the other video games that are doing that. So when we first started working on Focus Wand, I had an iPhone 8, and then, you know, about a month or two into it, I got an iPhone X, and I was shocked to see how much better it was. So, you know, there definitely is a bit of a hardware component to that. You know, AR drift is something the entire augmented reality world is dealing with. You know, it's as you move your phone, right? You know, if you go like this, it's nice and slow and nice and easy and great. If you do this, you're going to quickly, you know, very easily miss a step. So, you know, I think at the end of the day, slow, cautious movements are going to be best. I always do recommend just putting as many of those targets wherever you can, so that if you do drift, you can quickly get back into sync without having to go too far. You know, the better the hardware is, the better the response that we'll be able to provide you. But we're always keeping an eye on that. One of the great things about us choosing the ARKit and AR Core, so the Apple and Google versions of augmented reality, is updates come out fairly frequently for those. So as they continue to come out, we'll continue to implement them and try to make it stronger. But right now, it's just sort of, you know, slow and cautious is good. You know, at the end of the day, unless you're like running across the stage or seriously shaking your phone, I really don't think you're going to see a huge amount of drift. But it is always a possibility. And that's why we wanted to provide you with those 10 icons so you can always scan back in wherever you are.
Right. I know we've had some practical experience. Do you want to talk through some of the things that, certainly shooting those videos, we had some things that made it easier and better for us?
Yeah, and actually one of our videos that's coming up is on troubleshooting this exact thing. I mean, first of all, you need your model to be accurate. If your stage is 18 inches shorter than it is in real life, that's going to reduce your accuracy. It'll probably, with that specific example, it'll probably work, but maybe not quite. It might be a little off. And obviously, if your model is 10 feet shorter than your real stage, it's going to be quite a bit off. So accuracy in the model is kind of the first. That's your base of making this work well. And that's not only the size of your stage and the location of your scenery, but with Focus Wand specifically, the precise location of your targets. If they're off by a foot from your model, everything is going to be off by a foot every time you do anything. So that's kind of your first thing. And then as far as scanning in, we ran into a couple things with lighting levels. Like sometimes it was too dark or too bright or too blue. Specifically, some of the targets are blue, so that kind of washes them out and makes them not read. I ran into one with Anne, actually, in Austin last year, where my target was upside down, but I didn't realize it in the model. So all my lights were going, when I'd point left, they would go right. and vice versa. So I fortunately figured it out pretty quickly, but that's just kind of a silly one that, it's got to be the orientation of the target matters, it turns out. So there's those...
just a reminder on that, when you do scan that target, there's that arrow which should be pointing at the top of the paper.
Yeah, the little pin is an arrow up.
Yeah.
And so does the paper.
If it's pointing at the bottom, you're upside down.
Yeah, and slow movements. It's a good way to keep it. If you guys want to if you have anything else for that, there's a question about where to print the targets. So I'm going to fire the software back up here and show that.
Yeah. While Rob gets over there, the other thing is that with newly shipping consoles, so if you buy a brand new console from ETC, we will be shipping a set of really nice AR targets on like a solid plastic. So those are going to ship with all new consoles. Those will also eventually be available in the swag store. So as soon as those are ready, you'll be able to buy really nice ones from us that hopefully will last through the rigors of production. So we want to make those available for you.
Yeah, we'll make an announcement when those are available in the swag store. It's just not quite there yet.
Excellent. And then, Rob's going to show you. You can always print out your own, and Rob's going to take you through that right now.
Yeah, so it's in our browser, and I'm on Nomad here. You can do this on a console as well. I'm going to go to Export, and then Augmented Reference Point Images, and you choose where you want to send the PDF to. So I'll just say my thumb drive for now, and I'll get this window that pops up, and I can select any of the 10 images here. Make sure to choose your paper size. This is very important for scaling. So if I'm going to print it on ANSI A, letter size, I can do that and just say export PDF and then put it on my thumb drive here. And then when you are printing it, also make sure that your Adobe or whatever program you're using is printing it at 100% and not scaling it to fit the page or anything like that. Because that will also, the phone will think your entire model is bigger or smaller depending on which way it's scaled. And then these are all the size options here. There's lots of them. What I did, which helped me out, is I printed each one and then I just combined them all into one 10-page PDF. And then I have that one file, and I can go through and selectively, today I need page 3 and page 6 or, whatever. And I just keep that on my thumb drive, and then I don't have to do it again.
I think the expectation is that for a good while, these aren't going to change, and we're probably not going to add very many to them. So I think exactly, Rob's right, like, get them out in the format that you want them, that you feel like you're going to use them the most. And then just carry that PDF with you. Like, you don't have to go in every single time and generate this for each show. The PDF will be the same. So if you have access to an 11 by 17 printer and that's what you have, do it that way, and away you go. Cool. We had another question that came in, which is not related to Augmented, which is the current concert software impacted by EOS 3.0 release? And sort of, what does that all mean? Lowell, I'm happy to take it, or Lowell, do you want to talk about it?
So we will be shipping... Hang on, we just had this conversation. So 3.0 does not go to the 4.1 beta concert, which is an open beta right now. It is going to be a version behind, but once we release that, remember, you can always install that manually. But yeah, right now it's there's really no impact I can think of.
Yeah, just keep in mind that Concert is a separate installer on a console. So when you upgrade to 3.0, if you haven't updated Concert in a while, it's not going to update. So you can download the latest Concert installer from the website, and then you go through the same process as updating your console, and it will just install Concert. So that also, if you have auto update software on your system, that only deals with EOS family software. So you'll need to go, if you use Concert on multiple devices, you'll want to go through with SneakerNet and update Concert on all those devices individually. But I don't think there's anything between the two of them that has really changed with EOS 3.0 coming out. So you should be able to go from there. So we've kind of reached the end of our submissions and some of our questions. So I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts for the now released 3.0 with Augmented. It's done. That's a good thing.
There have been many happy dances.
So cool. All right, Rob, why don't you take us home?
Yeah, sure. Well, again, thanks to Lowell and Nick and Anne virtually, or hidden in the wings, for helping with this series. And of course, congratulations for getting the software released out of here, out into the world. And a general reminder that it's not finished. We're not done working on it. There's still a ton of things that we want to do with it. Thanks in large part to y'all's feedback. So keep the feedback coming. Now that it's released, hopefully everyone will be able to get back to work sooner rather than later. Time will tell, of course, but we're excited for once that is able to happen, to have this being used on real shows and see how it helps you and what other improvements would be useful to you. Please keep those suggestions coming. So thank you everybody for joining us for this series. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Nick talking about Sharp Control.
And folks, we're always here. So, if you have any thoughts or future things about what you'd like to see in Augmented, remember it's augmented@etcconnect.com. Drop us an email or post on the forums. We referenced this a little bit earlier. With us going live, we have now closed the beta forums. So there is a brand new Augmented forum at community.etcconnect.com. You go in there and it's inside the EOS family and it's EOS family Augmented. So feel free to jump in there for whatever you're looking for. And we'll continue the conversation there. Yeah, as Rob said, we're just getting started. We are probably going to take a little bit of a break from feature releases for Augmented right now and focus on some other EOS things. So don't expect huge new features within the next 2 weeks or so.
But 3 weeks. In 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yep, we've got a lot of stuff that we're planning and working on, but yeah, might be a little bit before we see anything major in Augmented, but we gotta do some other things. We're always working on fun things.
Alrighty, thanks Lowell. Thanks Nick. We'll see you all at the next one.